Hey YouTube, I have got a treat for you this time. It is Audulus 3, which is a modular synthesizer, which is vastly complex and hard for me to do a video for. So instead of me trying to explain all of the different modules and stuff inside of it, I'm going to show you a very specific patch idea that I've got, and I'm going to try to do this from the simple building blocks rather than the more complex submodules. So that you can see how I'm using these basic building blocks to build up a synth from scratch. And the patch that I have in mind is going to be useful for this month, which is February, the album writing month. We're going to make a patch that'll write the whole album for you. Not quite, but it'll be like a good basis for something you could use to do an album with. As you see with Audulus, you're expected to provide all of the input here. So this is an oscillator, but it's not doing anything. Put it on the speaker, and you're not hearing anything. I'll switch it over to square wave. You're still not hearing anything. I give it some amplitude, and you are still not hearing anything. And that is because we need to give it a pitch. Like, you have to really give it all of the details. And the pitch here is going to be in hertz. If you're not familiar with using pitch to hertz calculations, it's super simple because it's all logarithmic. So A4 is 440. A3 is now half of that, so 220. Or if you want to go up to A5, it'd be 880. I'm going to give it 55 for an A1. Just as an example here. Oh, shit. That was actually a nothing. And now we got sound. So we got amplitude and we got pitch, and it gives us sound. But I want it, instead of me having to type in numbers, I want it to do a lot of different things to give me a different pitch, continuously cycling and doing interesting things for a drone sort of thing. So this number thing is going to work. We're going to need a much more complicated number generator, and it's going to be really, really complicated. So I'm going to make a sub patch. If I drag and drop, and start diving into this, where I'm going to start off with a random source. And fortunately, there is a random source here. But this random source is moving really, really fast. It's actually moving at audio rate. So if I put a meter here, you can see it's spitting out all kinds of numbers super fast. And if I put a speaker on this, you'll hear noise. So I want to slow that way, way down. Because if you take a noise source and plug that into the frequency of something, you're going to be doing frequency modulation, which is audio rate modulation of the pitch, except you're going to be doing that with noise, and that's going to sound like shit. So we're not going to do that at all. We're going to slow this way down using a sample and hold. God, I'm having a hell of a time dragging and dropping here. All right. So the way the sample and hold works is I give it an input, and it spits out an output every time something triggers on it. So I can give you an example of that with a button. Every time I push the button, we get a new number over here. Oh my God. So we want to do that in a non-button pushy sort of way because we're trying to make this completely doing its own thing. So I'm going to delete that and add in a square oscillator, because a square oscillator is great for gates and triggers and things like that, because the up portion is on and the down portion is off. So I'm going to use that as the trigger source. Give that some amplitude. And now for the pitch, I am going to actually use the result from our sample and hold, which is going to cause a feedback loop, but it'll be interesting. So now, see, this number is moving a lot slower. Now that we can actually use, like if I put that in here, you wouldn't use this for audio, you'll get clicking. Click, click. But it's slow enough now that I can use it to change the pitch of my oscillator outside here in the real world without going into frequency modulation. So this is going to be really, really handy. But I want it to be a little bit faster than this. Right now it's too slow. So the way that this is working is kind of interesting. Whatever this number is, it becomes the frequency of that oscillator. So if it's a really, really low number over here, it's a really long time before it switches. And if it's really fast, it switches really quickly. So we want it to kind of calm the fuck down. So for that, I can use a range limiter and take the input from this and say I want a maximum of 0.9 and a minimum of 0.3, so it's not too fast and it's not too slow. And put that in here. And now it should be a little bit more consistent. Like that right there is going to be the slowest pitch change. So remember that the ultimate goal of all of this is it's going to be changing the pitch of my external oscillator. But we can't just give it this number because that's way too low for the pitch of an oscillator. Because remember, we're talking about 440 is an A4. A 0.2 is not even it's like a C minus 5 or something like that. So we need to give this a higher starting number to work with. So I can do that with a knob. I can come in here and say the minimum for this is 35 hertz. And the maximum for this is 65 hertz. And now I can combine these two numbers in an interesting way, because now I've got this to say this is what I want as my pitch. Like I can manually say I want my pitch to be somewhere around this, and then I'm going to screw around with it using our random generator over here. So I can I need to increase this number a little bit to make that meaningful, because if I just take these two together and add them, let me grab it from here. Our result isn't going to change very much. See, it's only changing barely like less than a hertz. And I want it to change a little bit more than that. So I'm going to multiply it by 5. And unfortunately, there's math to do that. So I'm taking this number, which remember was our 0.4 or whatever, and multiplying that by 5, which is giving me a nice bigger number. Yeah, okay. That's not giving me as big a number as I was hoping for. I don't want it to be too big because I'm not wanting it to jump octaves. I just want it to kind of be wobbling around. You know, let's go with this and see what happens. Right. So now we've got our knob that controls pitch, and it is, oops. So I can set a basic idea. I want it to be, way low or up here, and it's going to move around from there. So now I can take this and use the output function here. And now when I go back out into the real world, I've got this out, which, come to think of it, I screwed up because I want this to be a knob, not a constant. Let me change that real quick here. The knob will show up externally. And let me change, get rid of our bleeping. All right, let's set the min to 35 and set the max to 65. All right, so now I've got a knob out here and I can edit this. Oh my God. There we go. All right, and to keep this from getting confusing, I should have labeled that, but oh well. So now I got my knob and my output, and I can now plug this into here, and we can hear that. So you're hearing how it's slightly changing. So that's pretty amusing in and of itself, but we've only just started, right? So another thing that we can do now that we got this random generator thing here is we can make it now randomly screw around with panning. And to pan, I'm gonna cheat here and use a pre-built panner, so I'm not building a panner from scratch. Oh my god, this was really not liking my recording software and it's screwing with me. So if I take this in here now, I can pan it with this knob. That's right, for some damn reason left is down on this. Alright. Now I've got this random thing that I would like to use on this to cause it to randomly pan around, but I can't use this number. Remember, this number was really high. Was what 50 something, and this is expecting a number between 0 and 1. So if I give it 50 something, it's just gonna fuck up. So let's go back into our submodule, rename the output so that I don't get confused later. This is my pitch shitter. And now I want another output, but not this one that's got the knob on it that was giving it this higher number. So let me think about this. I could take a random number here. I'm watching the random number, and all of the numbers that it's giving me are quite high. Like a lot of those were like in the 80s, and then it went back down and it was a lower number. And I want this to be only on the left side because I'm going to have another one that's going to be on the right side. So I need to make it give me a number between 0.0 and 0.4, so it's only wobbling around on the left. Now I could cheat and use another range thing to limit that, but I'm going to try to do math here instead. If I take this and multiply it by 0.5, what do I get? That's maxing out at 0.48, so I think I will need to use a range limiter to keep this. What was that? To keep it from getting into the center, because I'm going to have something else going on in the center. So let me make another one. The max is 0.4, and the minimum is 0. Probably don't need to set that, but what the hell? All right, and we'll give that this output. And now this is going to be so sloppy. So random. Okay. Now I can take that after I move it around. apologize to anybody with OCD if you're bothered by the knob placement or whatever. Alright. And as hoped, it's bouncing around now with the pitch shifts to go all over the place. So whenever the pitch changes, it's also changing its location. Let's take what we got here and now copy all of this, because we've got it in modules, right? Like every little bit of this is a module unto itself. So I can just select it. I don't need this 0.5 thing, so let's just select these and copy them. Oh, it fucked up. I can already tell it's fucked up, so let me try that again. Okay. You can tell if things are highlighted by the red outline. Okay. So when I paste, yay, we get all this. So now we've got a second oscillator that's doing all the same stuff that we did before, except let's give it a different random seed. So it's going to be randoming a little differently. It's a pretty random seed. And now we should get I'll take the left from this and the right from this. Actually, that's not going to work because of the way that that's panning. Let me unpan that. Oh, that's right, I've got these backwards because down is left for some damn reason. Alright, so you got two different pitches going on. Kind of. Let me make the pitches more dramatically different. So that's the reason we wanted to have this knob externally, so I can manually tweak this. Now, I want to do that same panning trick on this one, except make this stay in the right channel. But our math is presently spitting out a number that's between 0 and 0.4, and there's not a logical way to do 0.6 to 10 or to 1.0. So instead of trying that, I'm just going to use the expression module. And this is a really handy trick because sometimes you need to invert a signal. Super easy here. Set the expression from X to minus X. So now whatever you put in here, it's going to give you the minus of that. So I'll take this random output that we're using for panning, and now this is going to be a negative number here. And I'll add this negative because there isn't a minus thing, so we have to add the negative to 1. And it should give me something between 0.6 and 1. It does. So let's give that to the so random. And now I can plug that out into our knob here. And we see it now. Oddly, that seed is really pushing it really high. It seems to be giving me that higher number most of the time. Oh well, that's random for you. So now we've got these two different oscillators together. While it's still in my copy paste, let me paste in another set of things. And now we got a third oscillator. Except this one isn't going to be modulating its left and right. It's going to be giving me a straight down the center. And give it a higher pitch so we'll hear that distinctly from the rest. And now we need to figure out a way to get all of these left and rights out to these two outputs. So fortunately there are mixers. We're going to need a couple of those. And take our left. And a right. And we remember that our left is bottom. So that's like the basics of it. You can get fancy now, and I will. Let's throw in a filter on that. All right, that's under effects. I'm going to need two filters because I've got my left and right channels now. And you're not hearing anything because that was way low. So I want to be able to control both of those simultaneously. So I can just use a knob. This constantly work. But if I give it to the hertz here, it's going down to like 0.0 something. So I got to remember that the knobs aren't set to give me hertz, right? I got to set the minimum and the maximum. So I'm probably going to want a minimum of about 300 and a maximum. God damn it. There we go. And a maximum of 2000. And I'll need another one for the resonance. But this one, fortunately, we can just leave with its default settings. So that already sounds a hell of a lot better, right? Things moving around. And for shits and giggles, we could now modulate this. Let's throw in another oscillator. This time I'm going to use a sine wave because that's going to sound better on the cutoff. And give that amplitude of 1. Oh wait, this isn't gonna work. Hold on a second. Let me think about this. All right, let's do the LFO part here. We're not using this second or this third so random thing, so we're gonna use that as the changer of the frequency of this sine wave that I'm going to be using as a LFO. But now it's going to be spitting out a number that is really, really low, between 0 and 1. Oh, and it's going to be negative. Fuck. Okay. So, in order to get this working up in here, because remember, this wants a huge number. This wants between 300 and 3,000. I'm going to have to do some math. I'll multiply the output of this by 100, maybe. That's probably not going to be enough. Let's multiply that by 300. Alright, and now we can add the result to that, to the knob value, and then plug that in, not into the resonance. And now they're moving around. If you wanted to get really fancy, you could split this off and do it as two different LFOs, but this video is already getting kind of long. But it might be an interesting idea to take the random outputs of these and run them at two different LFOs so that your left and right are doing different filter resonance cutoffs. But I hope that this has been educational in showing how you can use all these blocks and just like have the idea of putting them together and building something big. It really, really pays to work in these sub things, because if it looks like a mess out there, remember that all of this is being contained in this little module. I could probably have been trying to contain some of this later stuff as well, but you know, all of that is contained in here, and then we got all this extra stuff. That's a really, really handy way to work with this. I am liking the way this is sounding, by the way. Like it's kind of like an ambient dark feel to it, and the way that you have the three different pitches kind of moving around in the same sort of general area makes it feel like it's almost one whole thing, but it's not. It's doing all kinds of different stuff all over the place. I really like that. I hope you've enjoyed this. Thank you very much to all my Patreon patrons for making these possible. Take it easy, folks. One thing that you can get into here is playing around with the spread of this. So as you notice right now, it's just a little green line, but I can make it a really big green line. That's where that resynthesis is coming in. It's spreading out the harmonics so that the distance between the partials is greater, and you can control how many partials you have with this. So if I take it all the way down to 1, we're just going to get one sine wave. If I can't do craft work with it, I'm not going to try to do anything like that. So let's just clear that out and give it a vowel. And now I'm going to use this vocal synth, instead of making it say stupid stuff, I'm going to make it a big boomy pad. So let me start off